And we're good to go.
So we get started? Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Welcome for your time joining us on this Friday afternoon. Thanks to our colleagues at the FACT2 AI initiative, especially Megan Freewald and Keith Landa, and today for facilitating, helping us, Megan Martin. My name is Sharma, and I work here at Stony Brook University. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues, Cynthia Davidson, also from SUNY Stony Brook, and Mike Murphy from SUNY Oswego. We will speak briefly, sort of providing you some framing for the discussion, but most of the time we will try to facilitate a conversation where you can identify some potentials and identify some pitfalls so that you can take some strategies back into your classroom. Mike, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Sam. You can hear me?
Yes.
Great. As Sam said, thank you all for being here. Obviously, AI is still very much a moving target. Things are changing fast. But as writing teachers, we've each played a little bit with different AI platforms and asked our students to. And so we'll try to give you a sense sort of what we've been finding so far. I'm supposed to talk about the potentials of generative AI. Oh, and Sam, okay. Great, thank you. When ChatGPT was announced in fall of 2022, those potentials looked really huge and in some ways really scary. I think they are still both, though I think we've learned some things in the meantime. I think some people will remember that groups of writers were either being laid off, BuzzFeed laid off 180 writers in favor of ChatGPT almost as soon as ChatGPT was announced. And the Screen Actors Guild, too, was negotiating for its writers limits on the use of AI. There was a sense that writing might be wholly or partly outsourced in some way to AI. I think folks teaching, especially writing on college campuses, started to feel like it would affect what they did in kind of fundamental ways. We started to hear stories about worry about the disappearance of first-year writing and the sort of change, a fundamental change to the way that college would work in the future, especially in terms of writing as a mode of assessment and learning. I think after a year and a half, we've decided, at least in part, not so much. That is, the wheels have not sort of totally come off. And I think that the real sort of potentials doesn't mean that there aren't things that AI does startlingly well, but that those things tend to be, I think, for writers outside academia, at least a little bit more than for writers inside academia. So anyway, Sam, if we can go to the next slide. I would say in terms of like potentials, again, especially for writers outside academia, one of the things that generative AI chatbots do really, really well is to draft really formulaic text, especially text where there's lots of, in the data set that it uses, there will be lots of previous examples, okay? And it will follow a particular kind of a form. Marketing copy, thank you emails, institutional language, those kinds of things, boilerplate language that seems appropriate for a really specific sort of a context. I asked, though anybody, especially today, I can't see I have my screen blurred, so you can't see what's outside my window. It does not look particularly good. But I asked ChatGPT to write a piece on Oswego as a vacation site, a year-round vacation site, just before this meeting. It did a really, really nice job. It produced a certain amount of language that some of which was not actually true. Some of it, but we have to go back and sort of make sure that everything was in order, as there always needs to be sort of oversight. But it did a really nice job sort of generating some language that a writer could work with. I think that AI also does a good job of helping writers learn the conventions, just the sort of basic conventions of genres that they don't know well. Inside academia, we ask students to write lab reports. We write meeting minutes. Students students sometimes, but particularly writers out in the world, are in a position to write press releases frequently. Those are all genres I've asked ChatGPT to experiment with, and it does a pretty good job. I think my students have been responsive to this too. It does a pretty good job laying out kind of the basic conventions. Doesn't fully describe the way that the genre kind of works in the world, the sorts of changes, the ways in which you might bend it, the sets of sort of social relations it sets up, all of the things that in writing studies we sort of want to think about in connection with genre these days. That is, it does not sort of fully give students a sense of how genres work, but it does sort of introduce them well, I think. For academic writing too, I think there are certain kinds of utilities. Again, I think there's that most faculty teaching writing have found its use limited, and I think my students have too when we've sort of experimented with them. Students really sort of resist, my sense is, using AI as part of the academic writing process. But I'll say, I think it has some utility basically like early in the process and late in the process. I think AI can be a really useful resource as writers learn to sort of talk to it and think with it. As they begin a dialogue that helps them refine a topic, I think that's, again, especially useful. And two, there's some real utility at the end of the process in terms of copy editing. It's not a facility that's unlike the kinds of grammar check and other kinds of proofreading tools, spell check, that we've used for years. It does very similar kinds of things. And I think in lots of ways, I think it can be a kind of an equalizer for students. Students who come from multi-dialectal backgrounds, for example, I think can find AI to be a really useful sort of a resource at that level. And the other thing, of course, is, when we start to think about potentials, like, who knows? It's changing really, really quickly. But I think that AI does not do well at this point. The academic writing, in terms of the academic writing piece, is argument. I don't think it's especially good at argument. I think it's also not especially good at voice. My students keep observing that it's totally voiceless. I find that if you ask AI to write in the style of a particular author, it doesn't really do that very well. Again, it also does not argue very aggressively. It likes lists. It doesn't argue very vigorously. It likes lists rather than sort of carefully reasoned pieces of discourse. That all may change in the near future. So again, in terms of potentials, I think it's very much kind of a moving target. Thanks, Sam. I guess what I would like to do at this point is we'd imagined that in connection with each of these presentations, each of these 5-minute talks on potentials and pitfalls, that we would then break for some kind of an activity. I think Sam has set up breakout rooms. Is that right?
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
I will. As you give colleagues the instructions, I will also copy these over to the chat box.
We'll invite you to consider submitting to ChatGPT on the assumption, the hopeful assumption, that at least one person in the group will have a ChatGPT account. I'd ask you to take one of these prompts and just sort of play with ChatGPT and see what kind of response you get. I would ask you either to draft this is one of the pieces of formulaic writing I think we do in academia, draft an intellectual integrity statement suitable for a college or university. And just see what it brings you. Again, in terms of genres, I think AI is really good at forms. Compose an English sonnet. You can change the form if you like, on whether Aaron Rodgers makes a better presidential running mate or a Jeopardy host. You can change the topic too if you like, but the idea is to think about the ways in which it might take up and model given forms. Then in terms of the academic pieces, okay, I would ask it first, relatively minimal kinds of instructions. Develop topics for a paper in a communication studies course on acceptable limits to free speech, right? That's a typical kind of an assignment that a faculty member might give. I think a better question might be something like, I'd like to argue in my communications studies course that anyone who knowingly publishes misinformation online should be liable for any damages it causes, right? To begin with an idea. And then to say, can you help me with examples and potential counter arguments, to give it a particular sort of a charge. So anyway, again, I would invite you to play with at least one of these prompts.
I'm going to open about 20 rooms. We're 121 of us. And so that'll give us just about a minute for everybody to talk. Again, the prompts are assess how well ChatGPT performed those tasks. If you don't have access to it or don't want to use it now, maybe you can take notes and listen to other folks who have tested it. And then based on that trial, you could have a conversation. I think we have a full 10 minutes.
Thanks, Sam.
And those of us who are unable to go to breakout rooms can stay here. We can have a conversation, but please do go to the rooms. It makes it easier even.
Okay, so
sorry, just had to start it again.
no problem. So I found some little categories here. They're not comprehensive in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to look at these pitfall areas. One, AI making overt errors due to lack of information, outsourcing skills, reading and argumentation primarily, encouraging unethical or illegal behaviors. That would be the AI. Detecting plagiarism is a problem when it comes to AI produced text. That's probably the one we started talking about the most at the beginning. And then users taking or abdicating intellectual
Did we lose connection?
Not us, I think Cynthia. I saw her freeze and then I think she dropped out. So hopefully she'll just
She'll
come back. Yeah.
She'll come back. Maybe what we can do while she comes back is let us look at, I would like to ask colleagues to look at these and start thinking about what I know Cynthia is going to have us do, which is to ask us to come up with potential pitfalls that we have. Cynthia's here. Hi, Cynthia.
Oh, I had her and then she disappeared again.
For me too.
So just to save time, Cynthia is going to later on ask us to share some pitfalls that we have come across that we need to pay attention to. So we kind of learn from each other. Could you please take notes to get ready for the breakout room discussion while she comes back, reconnects? Take some notes.
And Sam, I wonder if I'm just checking my email to see if. Yeah, I see nothing from Cynthia.
Yeah, the connection is sputtering. I don't see her on the slide either. So it was probably her internet connection that's.
Shall we go ahead and try to present for Cynthia here?
Yeah.
I think I got her back. Cynthia, can you hear us? I see you here just got you as the co-host.
It's great.
There's Cynthia.
But you're muted, I think, Cynthia.
Muted, Cynthia.
Oh, okay.
Great.
I can't see everything. Okay, now I can. Okay, fine. I'm sorry for all that confusion.
It's okay.
All right, so next slide, please. Okay, so more often than not, we may realize that AI makes outright mistakes due to lack of relevant or precise information. AI makes stuff up and will often do so in a way that blends so well with accurate information that it catches everybody off guard, including fabricating academic sources. So this man, David Wilkinson from the Oxford Review, he found that some sources were coming up in the student papers that he didn't recognize, and he started to check them out. He realized that they were taking like real authors and real journals and putting them together and fabricating articles that didn't exist. So this is verified that it does do that, at least at the present time. So this is a good reason to make sure that your students include like digital object identifiers or permalinks with their sources in their papers. So you can just click through them and make sure that they're real articles, but that's an ongoing issue. Next slide. More advanced versions of ChatGPT, like the 4.0 version that you pay like a monthly subscription to, that can quickly read documents that are uploaded as PDFs and summarize them. This has legitimate educational convenience, especially in determining if a document might be useful for a user. But if the user does not follow up with their own careful reading, they can miss inaccuracies in the summarization or important details of information or misunderstandings about conclusions that the AI may have drawn. For inexperienced readers, such as students, activities like this outsource reading ability to AI, and they may never learn to read scholarly articles or other advanced source material. This could be even worse for younger students who have not obtained their full adult reading levels, especially when they get to college. It's going to be a problem for them. Next slide. So can AI help people achieve unethical acts? Yes, absolutely. When it's trained not to do this, because they try, clever users can find a way to prompt it so that it often bypasses that firewall. For example, ChatGPT may not help you build a bomb, but it'll give you a bunch of warnings and maybe refuse to help you. But if you ask it to tell a story about how to build a bomb, it might just do fine. Also, training or retraining AI to recognize red flags that may lead it to assist people with unethical or dangerous behaviors is an ongoing challenge for developers. A good example of this was reported in 2023 by the Washington Post about a child who asked AI for help in preparing for a meeting with an adult predator. The AI did not recognize the danger and encouraged the child to meet the person. While AI may recognize some danger areas and refuse to speak on certain topics, changing the framework of the prompt usually overcomes this. Next slide. So detecting plagiarism is a sore spot with AI-generated text because the detection tools are highly, highly unreliable. Kyle Wiggers from TechCrunch tested 7 different detectors and found that they failed in the majority of cases to identify AI text. As AI output improves, it should become harder to detect. This may change, of course, with some unforeseen breakthrough, but detecting AI is far more difficult than detecting like regular student plagiarism with tools like Turnitin, and that's hard enough. Most teachers will not, for ethical or legal reasons, want to risk flagging an innocent student. So many of us have moved away from focusing on identifying AI-generated text and move forward toward making every attempt to increase student engagement in the writing process. For me, as a teacher of students who write and argue about research, that means focusing more on how they engage with their sources, especially. And next slide. The internet has been a location for engaging in debates and discussions for, decades now with others. But sometimes writers and academics have pointed out that technology displaces us from our own thinking processes because of knowledge constantly being at our fingertips, such as with Google. It's easy to dismiss this as wariness about new technologies, but AI makes it even more possible for people to outsource their knowledge gathering to a single place. Last month, I heard a CEO of a technology institute speak about how he no longer uses Google and just uses ChatGPT in its place to get all his information. So that is happening. One of the advantages we teach students in the university is their ability to gather information from a variety of sources. So that really bothers me. This is a sensitive point for educators and one where we need to determine where we are going to get the most out of our energy. So even if students come to depend on AI for information and advice, the question I ask is, how do we move them beyond it and stimulate them to make sure that AI becomes a way to expand what human minds are capable of rather than a replacement for critical thinking and engagement with knowledge. Next slide. So this is the next activity we're going to do. We're going to do another small group breakout room thing. And I want you to think about these things. So I want you to think about a course you teach. Think about a few different types of pitfalls you can think of, and you can use the list that I gave you if that's useful. How do you think you could address those pitfalls, or how have you addressed them? And that's it. Let's give it a go. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could take a note or two as I open the breakout room, that'd be great. I put the prompt in the chat box. By the way, you won't see that when you go to the room. So take a look. And then Cynthia's question for the discussion, I will put it in the chat box again, and then I'll open the breakout room.
Thank you.
How do you think you could address those pitfalls? Or how have you addressed them? All righty, here we go with the breakout room. I think I'll create slightly bigger rooms because some groups kind of had a few people. Create 8 minutes. Thank you. All righty. So my task is very, very simple. Where is my, oh, 1 second. Okay. Because Mike has already helped us to identify some of the potentials, and Cynthia has already alerted on some of the pitfalls. My task is to then resituate those potentials and pitfalls in the context of learning. How could we harness the potentials but prevent the pitfalls in the way we teach in the classroom? Simply put, in the educational context, the question of AI, or what AI tools can do and cannot do, should be focused on whether they will help or hurt learning, not whether they will get the task done or not. So for example, if students are learning to write the thank you email that Mike talked about earlier, the question they should ask is not, can ChatGPT write a thank you email for me? That's a question they can ask when they get into the job market later on. But in college, the question it should be, how can AI tools help me to learn or significantly improve my current skills at writing thank you emails? If it doesn't help to learn and only does the task, that's not what we're looking for. It matters far less how sharp and effective our educational tools are. Our entire mission in education is to help students lay the best foundations of knowledge, skills, and experience to our successful careers as scientists and engineers, social service and medical professionals, lawyers and policymakers, and toward being happy and successful, impactful citizens of the world. So I am baffled when sometimes people are excited about what ChatGPT can do and offload reading and summarizing labor, offload the time and energy it needs to analyze or synthesize research. It is as if they somehow forgot the students are in college to learn and summarize, to analyze and synthesize. As I tell my students, we are here to improve that GPT, not ChatGPT, right? the one up here. But imagine AI tools become capable of doing all of these things for us. Even then, in the context of education, in the context of college, even if they can generate original intellectual positions and outline drafts and translate between languages, which they're not likely to do. I used to be a professional translator in my previous life. Even then, educators' professional responsibility will continue to be enabling students to judge the quality of AI assistance, how it actually works and where it fails and why, to try to actually break open the black box, even though it is impossible, at least by observation, to try to figure out what it does, how it does, why it does so. And therefore, beyond the simple potentials and pitfalls, our task is to explore how it helps us to teach and learn. So on that note, let me share 1 or 2 notes, and then I will open up the discussion. The question we should be asking is, number 1, for example, how can we help students explore the potentials to enhance learning by asking, by focusing on the learning process, not the learning product, the experience, and the learning goal. As students will focus on the sort of product in their work later on, but in the learning process, it is the experience that matters. Did the students feel confused and baffled and challenged and discouraged in the process of trying to write an email or a report? It is through that process of coming to realize what is the right way to do things, how to do it on their own, that they gain best from in educational terms. So we should warn students not to take the assisting of learning too far, because too much help is not helpful to learning. We should use concrete strategies. One strategy that I use in my class is what I call the 5 C's. First, I ask students to either compose a paragraph themselves or the essay themselves, and then check it out what ChatGPT does so that they can compare what they're doing with what the machine does. Either way, whichever way they started, I require them to cite anything they cite, they borrow, either ideas or words. And finally, and most importantly, to critically reflect from the comparison as to what they thought, what they learned. My second question would be, how can we help students to avoid the pitfalls that hurt their learning? I think we can raise awareness, as Cynthia and Mike have helped us today, by showing concrete examples like they showed, to motivate students to focus on the learning. I think we've already lost the game of AI-based plagiarism. We cannot detect, and AI cannot detect most of the time. Sometimes in very blatant situations, we may doubt, but that is not going to be adequate. We will never know how often and in how many ways the student has used ChatGPT in the process, right? Even if we will not see it in the product necessarily. And that means let us give up that fight. We have lost it already. And let us focus on motivating the students to make sure that they know why they're in a chemistry class. So they will use it in the right way. And finally, help them to leverage it, use it productively, and avoid the unproductive use. And if we could do these kinds of things, 1, 2, 3, and come up with our own strategies, I think we can, get the best out of it while avoiding the worst of it. And so with that, I'd like to open a Google Doc to actually, I forgot to make a new one, but if you don't mind, I will push the questions down and add these questions here. When you open the Google Doc, it is not working really well. Cynthia, would you mind putting the Google Doc in the chat link in the chat box? Okay. Oopsie. I actually meant to. Well, I did it. I didn't realize I had copied the Google Doc link. Now I'm going to copy the prompt into the Google Doc so everybody can open that Google Doc and see if you, 1 second, give me just this. I didn't copy it properly. Copy and paste. My computer is fighting with me. Okay, I'm gonna make it look like that. All right, here. So under each question, please write your thoughts. And if Google Doc is not being friendly with you today, because we're too many of us, you can write in the chat box and we can copy over. Let's write for about 5 minutes, and we have 4 minutes, and we can have the final 5 minutes of discussion. Sorry for the limited time. The question was, what are you taking away that you could use potential-wise? What is one strategy that you're going to use pitfall-wise? And if there is any other practical idea, please inspire us. Megan, if there is a way to copy over the chat content at the bottom of the same document, that'll be wonderful at the end of the meeting.
This chat in the Zoom?
Yeah, if colleagues happen to write there. But so far, it looks like the Google Doc is working.
Okay, yep, folks can save the chat too. If you go up to the top of the chat where it says FACT2 AI faculty development workshops, and then it says ... If you click the 3 dots that are next to that, it says more, and you can do save chat, and then that will allow you to also save the chat on your personal device.
Thank you for turning that on. I'm going to use it.
No problem.
Can you repeat the direction again about
what are you taking away that you could use potential-wise? What are you taking away that you were going to prevent students or, but
no, how to copy it. I meant how to copy the chat. Somebody just explained that, how to copy the chat.
Oh,
That's
okay.
Yeah, that was, if you go up to the top of the chat window, so there's usually
Oh,
like a
sorry.
little title. So for this, it's the title of the webinar,
Three
the
dots, yes.
FACT2 AI. Yep. And then you click the three dots that say more, and then at the top, it should say save chat there.
Rennie, was that? Okay. Wow, thank you so much, colleagues, for some rich conversation. Yeah. Yeah, we are at the 55 mark. And if anybody would like to turn on their microphone, microphone and talk, that would be nice, just to reinforce some ideas.
You know, one way in writing to help avoid plagiarism and using ChatGPT or Copilot or Google Gemini is to have students write in drafts. So they brainstorm, they give the outline, then they give a rough draft, and then they give a final paper. I mean, you can do that theoretically with ChatGPT or one of the others, but it's easier just to do it on your own.
Writing teachers oftentimes, and I'm one writing rhetoric communication type of field. And in our fields where we always write, we do this task, what we call diagnostic writing, but we don't like the clinical term. It's an early semester writing when I, in my case, open up a Google Doc and say, hey, can you please write, the best experience in college so far, or whatever it is. But in other fields, you could write, give them a question or two that relates to what they know or think or about your field. And if they write this 1 or 2 paragraphs early on in the semester in a document where you can track who's writing what, you can compare that with later on when students write a completely different language. And it's not only in terms of the writing skill, but also in terms of content knowledge and their critical thinking. And if there's a big disparity, you can invite the student to the office and say, I see a big difference, what happened? And then without accusing necessarily.
Hi, it's Jeffrey Ryman.
Mm.
First of all, I'm very happy to see some of my colleagues here today from FIT. I am the co-chair of the FACT2 task group that is helping to sponsor these events. And so I want to thank everybody on the team, who did such a great job today. I put into the chat a link to the guide that was created for last fall. I urge you to share it with colleagues who may not have it. There's nothing in there that's too dated at this point, but I want you all to keep an eye out for a new guide that is version 2, bigger and better, that will be coming out hopefully in late April. And one more plug, if you don't mind. We're going to have an all-day symposium the day before the CIT conference. And registration for that went out. It's $30, which really just covers breakfast and lunch. And there's really a comprehensive program that's all hands-on. So check your emails from the CIT conference, and hopefully you'll join us. I believe it's on the 21st. Thanks for putting that link in. And really, guys, this is great to see so many people here on a Friday.
Yeah.
Thank you for that commercial interruption.
Yeah, I had forgotten it. Thank you for bringing that back, and it's a good event. So many good ideas in the doc. Anyone would like to highlight? We have 1 more minute.
Sam, I was going to say just a couple of things that came up in the groups that I was in. First, the notion of like old school stuff, working with students as they develop ideas, what we're supposed to be doing in some fundamental way as faculty members. I think that's wonderful. Also, the extent to which, I mean, I have this discussion on my own campus a good deal, the extent to which students respond in less than critical ways if they perceive writing not to be sort of a value as a learning experience. So the ways, well, to whatever extent we can make our assignments meaningful, make assignments about ideas that students ought to be interested in chewing on as part of their coursework. I think that's really important. I think sometimes students perceive writing as busy work in ways that's really not useful. I was also going to note that some studies have been showing, I think there's been a good deal of worry about AI and cheating. Some studies have been showing that the overall level of academic dishonesty is not up since the advent of generative AI. It's that people interested in doing something dishonest have maybe taken up ChatGPT as opposed to more traditional forms of plagiarism. But I think really heartening news that, again, I think is confirmed by my interactions, at least with students. So I just wanted to note those couple of things.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. All right, we are at
It's a fixed
2
group.
p.m. Cynthia, have a last final thought?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like the same fixed group apparently that was using paper mills as migrating over to ChatGPT because it's cheaper now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. Okay, colleagues, thank you very much for joining us Friday afternoon. Anything else?
If you can, if you can send us some
Slides?
information, sites, information, etc.
We will try to do that for the organizers, yes.
Yeah, we can do our homework.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's a good discussion. Bye-bye, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye.
all.